Friday night, I want a Chippy Tee. Chippy Tee, Chippy Tee, I want a Chippy Tee. Oh, you keep giving me posh, no, she don't agree with me. I don't want lobster thermidor with raspberry Kool-Aid. It's Friday night, I'm within me rights, I want a Chippy Tee.
So we've got a special guest this episode. Welcome to Chippy Tee Podcast. Finally, the unveiling of Mrs. Auntie Moiré, our Auntie Moiré. Who is it? Drum roll. I can't drum, so probably.
Oh boy!
The big reveal.
Our mate Sam from Ministry of Sound / Ministry of Shirts or Ministry.
Yeah,
of
that's
Shirts.
right. Just Ministry of Shirts. Don't confuse us with those guys. We'll get in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
All the way from Australia.
Indeed.
How are you doing,
I'm doing
Welcome to
okay.
the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's very kind of you. I'm glad that the mask is revealed and I don't need to continue kind of being two people in the background. Thanks for entertaining all those crazy emails I sent through, but it was good fun from our side of the world anyway.
I
loved it.
enjoyed it.
We
I
loved
had a
it.
genuine friend, a pen pal.
Another pretend friend.
Imaginary friend.
Oh, Danny, that's outrageous.
So let's not mess about. Let's just get straight in. How's business, mate? How's life over in Australia?
Yeah, Australia's great. I think the print market is pretty buoyant. There's a few companies, sadly, that are not buoyant. They kind of capsized and went under, but things seem pretty stable. We've had a pretty hefty time the last few months, just moving premises, and it's been pretty stressful for the team, and a few, kind of put it, major hiccups getting things moved. We only moved literally 100 yards away to these new premises. Yeah, so in theory, it's a lot easier.
But you still have to hire a truck to move everything 100 yards.
Yeah.
You?
You still got to move the same amount of stuff, the same heavy stuff. And I mean, it was easier being closer, but it was also, a big move. And, you hear it all the time. If you move once, you don't want to move a second time. And this is our third, so it's hopefully it's big enough, but it's been hard. We had a few problems with the guys rebuilding the press. So we lost, we were meant to be down, let me think, I think we started tearing down on the Wednesday midday, early arvo, and we were meant to be up and running pretty much the end of the next day, but we weren't up and running until the following Wednesday morning.
That was optimistic. Yeah, it should always be.
Yeah.
It
was built
in your head.
They got the build quick, they did a good job on that, but there were really big issues bedding that press back in and getting the heads lined up with the platens, really.
Oh,
So give us a little 2-minute history lesson on Ministry of Shirts. So because I don't know much about you.
Sure.
Just give us a quick sort of 2 minutes.
I know absolutely everything.
I know you do, but I don't. So give us a quick 2-minute history lesson on the Ministry of Shirts, machinery you've got and stuff like that.
Sure. Okay, so we've been going since the beginning of 2017. There's a strange, already this isn't 2 minutes. Keep it simple, Sam. Maybe talk about
We'll go back to it.
Yeah,
Give me a little
okay.
synopsis.
So we're a typical screen print shop. We run an Anatole 10 head, 12 platen, and a couple of manuals, and 3 ovens, and all the usual things that you'd expect. And we live in what's known as regional Australia. You're probably familiar with all the really big cities. We're in a town called Armidale, which is the capital of New England in New South Wales. So that's about as confused as it gets, because Armidale's a Scottish town back in Britain.
Yeah,
it's just bonkers. But it's a great town. We serve the nation. We don't do an awful lot locally. We're an online business and we ship across the nation, which has its own issues wrapped up in it. What else can I say? 7 of us here. It's a nice little business and it's growing, and we have our own podcast and make a bit of noise down here, and obviously enjoy your podcast as well.
What sort of customers do you do? Is it merch stuff? Is it workwear stuff? Is it B2B?
It's B2B. Well, it's a bit of everything, to be honest. Our biggest market is churches. That's kind of how we started, serving the church market and the sort of Christian conferences and youth groups, that kind of thing. But we have a lot of breweries, a lot of cafes, restaurants, a fair amount of workwear, although that's quite a competitive market over here, clothing brands, sports clubs. We principally print on AS Color. We display the other brands. In fact, I remember, Danny, you came on our podcast a few years ago, and I don't think you'd even heard of AS Color then.
Possibly not, no.
Well, I remember saying, you've got to get onto them because they're just so good. And we love them. We think they're fabulous. Great product to print on. So pretty much all markets, I guess. It's quite competitive here. There's only, 26 million people or so here, and it's huge, right? So it's just like a couple of Londons, really, across something the size of Europe. So it can be a bit of a tyranny, this distance, getting things from one part of the country to the other. But we seem to manage.
I spoke to a couple of friends down there and said, what's the chance of a startup doing well down there? Is it a good market? And it's like, you've got to understand, there's only 26 million of us. We're spread out over a big area. And so when you look at screen printers, as soon as you get to like 10 or 12 of us and we get big, we can supply everybody we need to, other than going into the China market, which is all the fashion stuff, which the cost of labour is too high in Australia. Then, it gets difficult. It's a hard fought battle. So, I understand.
It is. And like I said, earlier, that there's a fair amount of screen printers that have lost their way in the last wee while. And, I guess that's good for the rest of us, but it's kind of hard to watch as well. And this is something I'd love to get onto at some point. The DTF market's really changing the way we do everything, but also the way we get involved in markets and the market share that we're losing. Because any Tom, Dick and Harry can buy a heat press and get someone to print DTF, and suddenly they're a printer of sorts. And I think that's beginning to kind of have an effect here, which worries me a little bit. But
So the question there is, are you a screen printer or are you a garment decorator?
Good. Excellent. Garment decorator.
There you
Absolutely.
go then. So it's down to your experience and your skill and your judgment to decide which method to decorate that garment with. And if the most cost-effective and efficient way is DTF, then go DTF. If it's DTG, go DTG. But use your experience and your skill to decide which is the best method to decorate this garment.
Absolutely right. We shifted the way that we make that decision recently, because that decision used to be made at the sales end. So when we're doing the quote and the mock-ups and everything, the person that does the sales here would make that decision. And then, of course, once the order came through, it would go through to artwork, which is where I work. Artwork and marketing's my kind of area. And I'd look at that and go, wow, we really should be DTFing that. Now what we do is the salespeople don't make those decisions. They just do the sale. They just handle the sale. And we make that decision internally. There are exceptions to the rule. So, the criteria is going to be, well, how many is it? How many colors is it?
Yeah.
Would this look better as a sim process, or would this look better as a DTF with more than CMYK, I might add. I have sort of issues with just CMYK DDFs. But then there's the question of, well, this would look actually really good as DTF, but it's 300. And maybe it wouldn't.
So then there's a cost issue. Yeah.
I've got a way around that, which I'll come to. But we make that decision, and then we'll say, well, hang on a second, this is a brewery or this is a clothing brand. They're expecting the kind of prints we produce using ink. So it sort of allows us to make that decision, but you've got to have the pricing right to make that work.
Yeah.
Are you finding any kickback to DTF when you put forward that we're going to do this DTF? Are you finding anybody saying, no, well, that's just a tramp?
Don't tell them.
Well, that's a temptation. I think, firstly, I'd say the greatest kickback I think any of us will get is from other screen printers, right? They're the ones that are sort of peeved about it. And I kind of understand that. I was talking about this recently to some of the guys on our little, our podcast, I should say. it's like a religious war. There isn't a simple answer to it, and that's why the question you asked there, Tony, is perfect. Are you a garment decorator? Are you a screen printer? What is it you're about? And are you doing embroidery, just screen print? Screen printing is a real art. We all say this. It's a phenomenal art, but we're all trying to be really commercial about this, or at least we should be, in my view. And so you've got to work out what the horse for the course is. So I think the first people to complain are the screen printers, and rightly so. They're going to lose an element of the market. I think it's got to happen, or it is happening.
Yeah.
But also, if you want to run your business that way forever, it's great. The prints are going to be awesome. They're going to be screen printed. You're going to keep that art going, and that's great. As for the customers, we have never had a customer complain. When we first started doing DTF, probably 2 and a bit years ago now, we were using Supercolor, and we were really nervous about that. And we said to the customers, look, this one's going to work best in a different technology known as direct-to-film, yada, yada, yada. And whatever, no problem. No one has ever called us and said, we don't use Supercolor now, by the way, but no one has ever called us and said, we don't like this. This is, not what I'm expecting. Some of the DTF that's coming out now, depending on the kind of print, like a full all-over print isn't so easy. But you can make it feel like a screen print.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to tell, and it'll stretch just the way a screen print would do a stretch test and so on. But the problem is the speed of application. That's the issue. And also I'm learning the speed of, if you invest in your own DTF printer, which is something we're looking at, the speed of printing on a DTF printer isn't as fast as you might think. Because every manufacturer will tell you, it'll do, 70 square meters an hour or whatever, but it's linear meters that matter, right?
Yeah.
Which is why the machines are getting wider. Now,
That's right.
The 600 mil machines now, they're going to be a thing of the past. We're already heading into the 1200 mil machines. I think it's Ricoh brought their first one out, and they were one of the first sort of big boys, big guns, to bring out an industrial DTF. Mimaki tried it, but it didn't really work. And Ricoh brought one out, and that's going really good, and it's like a 1200 mil wide. So I think we're going to go the same way that we went with large format printing. We're going to get to the 1500. It's going to be bought by a bureau, and the bureaus are just going to kick these prints out for pennies.
Yeah. And that's what you need. And sadly, a lot of the print shops are never going to be able to afford that. So they're going to have to outsource to these companies that have those kind of machines. And then, the cost goes up a bit. So that's the first issue is, I said to our production director here that, there was a really nice, fantastic print. I think there's one around here somewhere, for a surf club. I think it was a 50-year anniversary or something. And it was really, really nice. And I said to her, why don't we look at DTFing this? Because there was some small kids ones. And you kind of don't want to do this fantastic screen print and then struggle to replicate those colors perfectly on a DTF just for the little ones.
Yeah.
And she was kind of like,
DTF show up the screen print.
Well, yes, I didn't want to say that. I've really lost all my screen print friends by agreeing with that. So we decided, let's DTF that. And it was amazing. It was a phenomenal print. But the speed of printing was a nightmare. I think it was 300 or 400 garments front back. But we are now, and I think this isn't, I think this is common knowledge over here. I've got to be careful because it's being released, I think it's the 23rd of next month. We've just bought a rocking press.
Right.
It's the first one in the country. We've got the 4 heat press version with the 8 platens, and also the
auto load and auto unload.
Yeah. So the auto place. We haven't got the auto remove. I just don't feel comfortable with that yet as a concept. But it will do that, and it'll also remove the T-shirt as well. So we've got one of those coming just after that event, and that'll be the 26th of May. And so that's 300 to 500 an hour is what they say. I'm happy with 300 an hour, to be honest.
360. They're already working. These machines have been out for a long, long time. I saw one in Munich 2016,
Wow.
applying to
Okay.
bags, doing exactly the same thing. One operator getting plus 500 an hour, pulling off and onto a belt. Easy when you're only doing bags, but when the substrate changes, when it changes to t-shirts, it's different. But our mate Ricardo, he makes that one, the Columbia, and I was blown away by that. And it's now sort of 380 an hour, one person, auto placement, auto removing of the transfer. I honestly think this is the way forward. If we can automate the whole process, print, cut out the transfer, place it on the shirt, press it, and unpeel it, none of those processes require a human. If we can nail it down to the placement, and we just put the shirt into a printer, and then it comes out with a transfer on it, then that's the future, I think, of automated printing.
I think so as well. But Danny, we need to ask you what you think about that, because I've heard you guys banter about this quite a bit, and you sort of have slightly different views. You're a little bit more traditionalist in terms of screen printing.
I think it's rubbish. Yeah, that's
tell us about it. Go on.
So those who can do, those who can't DTF.
Now that's Chris at Black Dog,
Printing
down the road from me. Yeah. He's about 4 hours away from where we are. Good lad.
Down the road 4 hours. Yeah, it's a different place, Australia, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Black Dog was on my list of suspects, by the way. It's funny we brought up DTF, and I think I've been a little bit unlucky in facing resistance every time I try to sell DTF. And that could just be that my customer base is so sold on the screen printing idea that I've worked so hard to sell. Screen print is the best thing, forget everything else, which I've done for well over 10 years. And now I'm trying to convert some of those customers every now and again and say, look, this job's not going to run on a print press so well. Let me run it with DTF. It'll look great. DTF's come on. But they're still a little bit stuck in the past that it's a heat press vinyl. It's HTV, and it isn't. It's so much better than that now. So there's every time I get a bit of resistance. So
the issue is, can I do it? Yes, I can do it. I can print anything. Can I do it and make money at it? That's the defining factor. Can I do this print? I can do this print. You want 10 of those 18 colour prints? No problem. I can do it. It'll take me 2 days. Are you willing to pay for that? And if you're not willing to pay for that, then I can't make money printing it. So it's not a matter of whether I can print it. It's whether I can economically, viably print it and still make a profit.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I mean, so I had the other argument to this all is, I had a customer a couple of days ago come to me. It was a strong man who I've worked with in the past with screen printed shirts, but he's just set up a personal training business and they need some polos. But they only want a handful. And I thought about it. Normally, my instant reaction is, sorry, mate, I can't do it. But they're going to go to somebody who can do it. And if they happen to have screen printing as well, maybe they'll stick with them.
Yep.
So I look at it now as it's a necessary evil to offer DTF for me, just to keep those customers in my inbox.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy the process. I'm not particularly attracted to the idea of it. I'm frightened it's going to take away my precious screen print business. But it's a necessary evil.
You wouldn't stop screen printing, right? Like we wouldn't stop screen printing. It'd be insane to do that, right?
Yeah.
You get a job of a couple of thousand garments, like let's say a white shirt with a black print. You're not going to DTF that in a million years. It's just stupid, right?
Yeah.
So you keep doing that, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not going nowhere. It's a compliment. Everything's a compliment to each other.
It's a perfect compliment. Do you have DTG at all?
Me?
Yeah.
No, never ever gone near it. We did outsource a couple of jobs a few years ago to a guy in Sydney that did great, but no, never ever gone near it ourselves.
DTG always promised to complement screen printing with the low quantity, high colour runs with good quality. but it never quite delivered. It wasn't quite as efficient as the salesman said. It was never quite as straightforward as the salesman said, and there were so many limitations to what substrate you can print onto. Whereas I think DTF is the perfect complement to screen print because it removes some of those limitations, and it does do what it promised that it would do.
You can print it on, you can print it on a pair of bamboo underpants. You know what I mean? It'll work.
I have some bamboo underpants here. No, I don't.
I'm going to ask you what size they are. Yeah.
Small, medium, and liar.
I've got a pair of those. Yeah, so I think that's right. Horses for courses, a complementary thing. I think the customer will learn, but I do think the pushback is largely from our friends in the industry.
Within the industry.
That, don't like it. And there is a part of me that feels that when you've been screen printing for a good while and you go to something like DTF, there's part of you that doesn't want to go, that's good. There's part of you that feels it's cheating, but yeah, I think it is going to push forward everywhere. So we need both is my view. And also, if we're able to invest in the DTF printer, which we're hoping to, we get a little bit more control over those things. If we don't like the color that came, because, you got problems with Pantones. CMYK, that's really not a great answer to a Pantone. No. We're looking at 8 and 9 color machines.
Nine color solved that over here. I was recently in Europe, and the 9 color printers over here have solved the Pantone matching issue immediately with very little work. Yeah, the 9 color ones are just banging them out, and they're not really that much more expensive either. And to get that corporate Pantone matching from a digital printer, superb. Because let's face it, most commercial printing is digital now, and we do match Pantones. We do have corporate guidelines that we have to hit. So there's no reason why it can't be replicated on a piece of transparent film.
Exactly. And imagine, we had a job recently for a big conference in the beef industry over here, and again there were kiddies or youth, smaller youth garments in it, and so we did all the standard garments on screen with standard plastisol ink, and we outsourced the transfers for the other ones that came in. It was a totally different color green that was on them. Now, if we had that in-house, we could catch that as it's coming around the roll, right, and go, hang on, guys, that's the wrong green. Let's, mix it up a bit and get it right. And I feel like that level of control, or that thing where, you run out of transfers because they didn't deliver them all, or, and then the people that do our transfers are actually great. We love them. They're in Canberra, which is about 13-hour drive away. I'm just trying to make the point about it. Yeah, it's just down the road. And they'll cut them for us, which is a massive, massive gift. But just having that extra level of control over it, I think it is critical. So we're interested to see how...
It's quite expensive. When you look at what you spend with your DTF supplier over the year compared to the cost of ownership of ink, film, powder, and the labour to run it, because most ones I see are not unattended printing. They need to be attended. So you've got to factor in all that as well.
It's like a plate spinning exercise, I think, with DTF. You get it going, you check it's okay, and you just keep coming back and checking. And obviously, if there's an issue, you stop and resolve it. It can't really be left alone forever. And then there are other issues, head strike, nozzles, blocking up, that kind of thing. I think they're getting better, those kinds of problems. But I think it will... my goal here, and I probably... as usual, start talking and say too much, but is to have a one price, whether it's full color, whether it's single color, just to be able to go to my customer and say, don't worry about whether it's full color or single, just give us what it is you want printed. It's the same price. That's my goal. We're launching a new brand in July here, which will run a little bit differently to the main brands that we do. And I want to kind of test that market out with smaller quantities. Our minimum here is 20, but I want to do 1 and just see, whether we can get that extra leverage on the value. But for all the other customers that come in, one price. That's my goal. I may eat my
I've seen it happen over
Okay.
here. Yeah, it does work if you're selling online. So if you're selling online, the secret to selling online is keep it simple, stupid. Just absolutely right. This is my shirt. Pick your shirt. Right now, what do you want on it? Okay, that's an extra $2. That's it. Done. And then when it comes to you, then you decide. Well, I can screen print this and make 150, or I can DTF it and only make 125. But that decision is on you rather than on the customer who knows nothing about the process that you use.
Exactly. And to be honest, I think in that market just doesn't care either.
No, they're sat in the pants at midnight on the computer and just suddenly remember they need a picture of a shirt with a picture of a dog on the toilet. Oh shit, I forgot to get that. Right, I get that now. Right, well it's $20. Yeah, okay. Well, buy now.
Yep.
How can I click it? 3 clicks and it appear at my door in 2 days' time?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you guys both put the emphasis on yourselves to pick and choose which decoration method is best for the customer. Whereas myself, and I look at some of my rivals and I'm thinking of them in competitors, rivals. I put the emphasis on the customer. We offer screen printing, or we can offer DTF, or we can embroider. You pick what you want. Maybe
Customer doesn't know. Customer hasn't got a clue. It doesn't know the difference.
Too much credit.
I've had customers who have ordered embroidery, and when it comes, they go, "What's this? It's all stitches. I'm expecting a print."
Well, I get that quite often. Oh, I want this embroidered. And I go, well, we can't really do embroidery. Oh, no, I meant it printed with ink. All right, yeah.
I've had this for 20, 25 years. When you're dealing with the end user, they simply don't understand the same terminology we use. They don't understand what a polo shirt is. I got my shirts, but they've got buttons down the front. Yeah, you asked for a polo. Yeah, a polo with a collar and short sleeves. That's a T-shirt. That's what I said, a polo T-shirt. Hang on. So yeah, I think it's down to us to educate the customer, but also to use our experience to pick the best decoration technique for that job, that quantity, that price.
Yeah, I think I was talking to the team this morning about this. We used to, so I'd love to get onto this whole thing of customer service, actually, because partly what we're talking about there is the customer doesn't know what we do. They're interested in the price, obviously, and they're interested in the finished article. They never kind of get to come through the doors and see what a press is, what ink is, what a Pantone is, etc. Why do you need a big pizza oven? It's just alien to them. And we used to put cameras, Google Nest cameras, big magnetic cameras on the print heads with different angles. So, and we'd basically link them up and actually record various sessions of printing for various customers so that they could see their artwork, which is a really big deal, right? Getting split into screens and getting printed with all the different colors and everything. And we'd upload this for customer experience.
Love that.
And I feel like half of our customers were like, "What?" Yeah, and the other customers never looked at it. And that's the problem, right? Was it a really good marketing tool? Probably not. Some of them may have shown it to their mates and gone, "Wow, look at this! This is my print getting printed by the guys." But I just don't know how much they care. We care. We really care about good prints, right? It's what we're about: good quality garments and good customer service. But I think the customer cares about the customer service most. So if they have a problem with the garment or the print when they finally get it, that's when it really matters to them. How are we going to resolve that problem?
Yeah.
So
they don't care if you provide behind the scenes pictures.
It's the sizzle.
Shirt lands it's upside down. So
that's the sizzle. They care about the sizzle. They don't care about the sausage.
That's right. Yeah.
So Sam, can I drag you back a little bit to your backstory?
Yeah.
How did Ministry Shirts come about?
You find it so hard not to call it Ministry of Sound.
I know.
How did Ministry of Sound come about?
I'm pleased to say we're fully trademarked and copyrighted, because that was always a slight concern. But there are a few other kind of copycat type businesses in terms of the name anyway. But yeah. Right. How do we start? Well, what was your background prior to printing? Because I know you were
in business prior to printing at all.
Yeah. I've been in business since I ran. Probably a bit of an exaggeration. I'd like to say I ran my first business when I was 12. That was more of a desperation thing to fix a problem at the time, but it was a business.
Right.
And since then, I've run a whole host of different sizes and types of businesses, mostly in the 90s around IT. We had the first internet service provider in Edinburgh for the corporate market. We ran a fairly big IT company there, a number of IT companies in America. And from there, I moved into, I found I had a little bit of a, I don't know if it was a gift or what it was really, that sounds a bit arrogant, but a good experience with raising capital for businesses. So a small one would be 11 million, a large one would be a couple of $100 million, that kind of US dollars, that kind of size. And that allowed me to kind of make all these great contacts and kind of got me into the world of consulting, a little bit like you do actually, Tony, but obviously not in screen printing. And from there, I went into starting a business and running a business in management consulting and government, which was about what they call large-scale transformational changes. So a number of the shared services in the UK were designed and delivered by myself and the team that I worked with back then.
Wow.
And they're big, 1.5 billion, those kind of size projects. And I enjoyed that a lot. And I enjoyed consulting a lot. And I don't know if, Tony, if this is your experience from the business end, is you come into a new place, you may be revisiting a place you've already been to, and there's a problem you've got to fix. That's what a consultant does, right? And the first question is, what is the problem, right? Diagnostic, design, deliver. And simplify, standardize, and share. That's the model we used to run on. But often you can be in and out quite quickly. It could be a day, it could be 5 days, it could be a couple of months. It might be even 6 or 9 months, but you get to leave. You don't get too caught up in the politics and you don't become part of the furniture there.
It's great.
I really
that's the best part. It's the best
agree.
part is you drop into somewhere and 9 times out of 10, the people that are there know the problem anyway. They just lack the method of communicating what it is. They even know the solution, but they're not really allowed to through office politics, through hierarchy, whatever it is. And you walk in, you say exactly what they've been thinking. They agree with you and then leave. And then all the shit comes and it's, well, Tony said. And Tony's 5,000 miles away in England, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, I agree. It's one of the bonuses of consulting.
The downside, I mean, is that you're just continually traveling. And even in Australia, so I ran a company here called Attentive Consulting that worked again in the government sector. So Australia launched a thing called the National Broadband Network in 2011, I think it was, which was fibre to the house across the country. Now, if you are living in Seoul, let's say, in South Korea, that's no big deal, right? Because most people are living in Seoul and the other big cities, so you just run it in, connect it up. But when you've got 7.5 million square kilometres to cover with, it's just a little bit kind of like crazy idea, right? But nonetheless, the government got going on it. They had a number of launch sites across the country. And as good fortune or providence would have it, the city I live in was was the first mainland city. Oh. The first one outside of here was in Tasmania, but then they came to this town. And I just managed to kind of make the connections and build a little strategy for the government here. And the federal government started creating funding around this for each town. And so we launched this consulting business around the digital economy for each of these cities where it was deployed. But it meant about 140 flights a year. And, it's just insane. You go mad, right? And so
55 was my limit. I can't even imagine more than 55.
And the problem is here, if you want to go anywhere, you've first got to fly to Sydney. If you want to go to Tasmania, often the flight goes through Melbourne. If you want to go to Perth, it's 6 hours from Sydney. So that's part of the issue. There's always more than one flight generally. Yeah. But I just got really fed up with it. And it's hard, you're doing 70, 80, 90 hours a week. You're getting paid pretty well. and it's exciting and interesting. I was able to consult with the Prime Minister and the Senator for digital broadband and all those kind of. It was fascinating stuff, and I think we were making a real difference on the ground. But I got really tired of it, and I didn't need to keep doing it. So in 2017,
How old were your kids?
now or then?
How old were they then when you were traveling?
These really. Oh well, I've been doing that forever. So, all pretty much most of their life, I was traveling. Unfortunately, until this, 7, 8 years
hard,
ago.
Yeah, I couldn't do it when my kids were young.
And that's taken its toll on my relationships. I'll be brutally honest. And we should maybe come on to that if we've got time, because this business, Ministry Shirts, is partly owned by one of my daughters, which has its own dynamic. But I'll come to that, because that's how we got started. So in 2017, I said enough of this, and I sold the business and sold the brand, and was quite excited about doing no traveling and, catching up with my mates and my family and my wife and so on. And, but I wanted a project. So I got 4 daughters, and 3 of them married and left, and the other one was still at home then. And I wanted to just have a project to do with her. We both love art and so on. And we said, why don't we do our own clothing brand? And, we could do a Christian kind of clothing motif with various things. And someone said, well, you need to get a screen printer. And I said, well, what's that? Now, I was in a band as a kid, and I did, it's the classic thing. And the bass player still got
beard, tattoos, bass player.
I haven't got the tattoos yet. I'm still working on that. But so I knew what screen printing was, but I didn't know how to make the screen or what a press was.
Yeah.
So I went on eBay, as a lot of people did, I guess, and bought the blue, $199 4-color
tabletop.
Yeah, which of course is enough to stop anyone learning screen printing quite quickly.
Yeah. More of a deterrent to the.
And we had 2 screens, we were coating emulsion with paintbrushes and using a halogen lamp, all the usual things. But it's so addictive.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, this is amazing. When you finally get to print something, and then you can print another one and another one, it's kind of infectious. And so we liked that a lot. And the clothing brand kind of took off. But our market for that is in America. And as you pointed out, Tony, the cost of labor in Australia is really very high compared to America, certainly. And so we kind of outsourced that to the print-on-demand companies and started a few things there. But it just became impossible to manage things like returns and, coping with customer issues. But while we were doing that, one of my son-in-laws said, could we print the T-shirts for his beach mission over at the coast here? And I think it was like 50 Gildan, blue tees or whatever. And it was a 3-color front and a 1-color back. And it took us 6 days, and we were using the iron but I said to him, what do you normally get charged? I'm not going to charge my son-in-law, obviously, but what do you normally get charged for this? And he told me, and I was like, kicking.
Doing the maths in your head. Hang on, every hour that passes, it only costs this. Yeah, okay. I only need 4 of those jobs a week, and then I don't have to. Yeah, I got it now. Yeah.
So my daughter and I kind of tossed this up a bit and said, well, you only need to do this part-time, and you can do a few things in the morning and take them down to the post, classic. So we said we'd have a go, and we started. First of all, we were called, what were we called? Oh man, I can't even remember what we were called. Something like Swordfish T-shirts. That's one of them. New Heart T-shirts was another one. Anyway, we came up with the Ministry shirts, and what did we do then? We bought a really old AdTech 4-color press with 3 platens.
Right.
Like it didn't even have a 4th platen. It was.
That's where you stood. You stood where the 4th one was.
That's right. And to be honest, it was so much better than the Chinese press.
Yeah.
And, it didn't have micro red or anything, but we soon worked out how to do that. And we were using a flash dryer instead of an oven. Then we got a heat press, which worked well. But I was using all water-based ink. And,
Oh, yeah.
here in the summer, it'll be in the low 30s pretty regularly, but it's really dry.
Yeah, humid.
There's like no water vapor at all in the atmosphere. It's just bone dry, which, I just thought, it's so much harder than I realized. And I'd heard about plastisol, but I thought, that sounds really difficult. Everyone's going on. And I thought, one of these days I'm just going to try it. And I was like, man, this is so easy. It doesn't dry in the mesh. We can leave.
I get to go home. I get to go to the pub at 5 o'clock. I don't have to stay here and scrub this fucking stuff and then wait until tomorrow and realise I didn't watch it properly.
So we just did that, and we just grew. We got in the market and started doing churches. People found out about us. The church community is very connected, obviously.
Yeah.
The church community is fantastic. I have a customer in India, in America. He's called Sock Religious. And he honestly, he started making socks with a religious theme, and obviously they are really super religious as well. And then that just naturally moved into T-shirts, and the T-shirts have beautifully corny logos on them, usually around the saint. But the market is huge over there.
It is huge.
It is a really good sort of closed market.
And I'm a Christian, and I'm very involved in that kind of world as well. And I speak at church and so on. So there's a kind of trust that goes in the relationship. They understand us, we understand them, we understand their mission. And I think that helps a lot. But that really grew us massively. And we just started buying better kit. We got a proper 3-meter oven. This is running in a 2-car garage at home, upgraded the electrics, got better flashes, got a proper metal halide exposure unit. These were all secondhand, all of these things. And then I said, I really want a good press. And we bought a Vastex 8 color with, all the micros, the top one.
Yeah.
And then better ovens and stuff. And then we just, we were putting gazebos up on the drive because if it was raining, we just couldn't contain everything in the 2-car garage. And we just started looking for other premises and eventually found somewhere and moved out. And I think that was 2020, end of 2020. So COVID had hit. And we'd lost 96% revenue in 1 month.
Wow! Just as you moved out.
Yeah, because it was all camps, right? It was all big Christian camps, and they couldn't go anywhere. So I said to Lydia, we need to diversify into other markets. That's when we started doing breweries and all the other things we do. But when we moved, I said, I'd really like us to get an automatic because, if you work your way up to, let's say, an 8-color manual or even a 6-color manual, you love getting an 8-color job, right? It's just, I love it. But then you see how long it takes, even doing wet on wet.
Who was printing? Who was your printer?
I was the printer.
You were the squeegee dragger.
I was the dude with the arms that were falling off from my elbow and your wrists. I'm an old guy, and it wasn't easy. But yeah, you can't. You're spinning the rig, and you're color 3, color 4, and it's just taking forever. So we ordered in the Anatole 10 color, and
you're all right, Danny. Your magic cameras followed you. He does this. It's about an hour before he needs a wee. And so, he pretends that he goes like that and pretends there's somebody at the door, but actually he just needs a wee because he's got a bladder about that big.
Well, that's normally the problem that people our age have, to be honest.
I know, yeah, I'm doing well, but Danny's hit him really early.
Well, Ed.
He's not allowed to have a drink while we're doing the podcast.
I want to, before we carry on, I want to laud you guys for this podcast, but I'll wait till Danny gets back because for me personally, it's been it's been revelatory listening to this podcast. I've enjoyed it so much, but I'll save that comment for when he gets back. So we ordered the Anatole, and I think that was June.
The 1012.
Yeah, the 1012, the Volt. We
All
couldn't
electric.
afford. Yeah. We couldn't afford a Rock or an M&R, or certainly there's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no MHM in Australia. I know they're in New Zealand.
No, there's a really good tech down there that started up here called Colin Good. He started with MHM up here in Nottingham and moved down there to go to Taz. So Taz is really the main sort of machine down there.
That's right. There's a lot of M&R here, and there's a lot of Taz. And Taz, obviously, if you've got an issue, they'll resolve it in a couple of days rather than, dialing into Poland or America or wherever. So we ordered it, and no, that's right. We ordered it in the January. It was meant to be there in the June. And some war started in, where all the pirates are in south
Somalia.
of the Gulf.
Yeah.
And so the ships all, I don't know, they went via the Antarctic or something. But anyway, it arrived in the following January.
By then, waiting list for a press.
Yeah. This was the Anatole.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on the Anatole.
And that's not Anatole's fault or the guys that import. It was just a problem with the ships. And, we got a rapid wave flash with it, and we got two of those, and we got the exposure unit that they do, the LED exposure unit, which is great. All their products are great, and like all those presses, really. But by then, 8-color jobs, I was crying, you know what I mean? My arms were just, I was like, why on earth did I ever think I could do this? But then, of course, you get your press and bang, you see an 8-color job come out. And then there's another one in 4 seconds, and then another one, and you're like, wow, I should have done this earlier. This is like everybody says, right?
Yeah.
Danny's nodding away at this, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's been your experience, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I wish I'd have got it earlier, but at the same time, I'm glad I held out for a new quality press. I could have years before got an old 20-30-year-old M&R or something, and I'm sure I'd have been happy, but I'm glad I held out for her. But ultimately, like you say, your body just can't cope at a certain point. It starts to break down, manual printing. I've got no time now, so how I coped on a manual, I actually don't know. I have not a clue.
If you didn't print much, it's as simple as that. That's not big. It's just your 100 shirts was a day. It was busy. That was a busy day.
Yeah. So,
I was speaking to a friend up on the Sunshine Coast called Jacob from Death Cleek Printing the other day. He's got a Taz, I think it's a 10-color, but he does a lot of DTF. But he's the screen. He owns the business, but he's the screen printer, right? Because the other guys don't know how to do that. And he just says, sure, if it's black on a white T-shirt, I'll print it. Not a big issue. Just give me lots of colors. I'm putting that on DTF because he's got to do it all himself otherwise. And I get it. I really get it.
I can really relate to that. Right now, if a job comes through the door and it's a few hundred T-shirts with a white print front and back, I'm so happy. But if a job comes through the door and it's a 6-color, I'm like, But
it's a lot of work.
I built up that relationship with customers that they are expecting high colours off me. But it doesn't make me money, really. If anything, it holds me back.
This leads into another topic that I really wanted to cover. Sam, are you still printing, Sam?
No, I haven't printed.
And this is the key. If the businessman, the guy who runs the business and makes all the major decisions, is on the press, the business will suffer. That's not your skill. You need to hone your skill of running a business. That's where you're going to make the money. If you spend all your time on a press, your business is not going to grow, and it's going to eventually just fade away.
Yeah, this is exactly where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you get there, right? That's the hard bit, is working that out. And I feel like we were a bit lucky with all of that. but I haven't printed since since that press arrived. So I think I've printed a few jobs on it, but then we got some more people to help, and Lydia basically learned how to print on that and is just amazing at it. Lydia can see a print job come round, it's 12 platen, so it's come round, and she can look at it and go, we need a little bit more pressure on that red, or the angle of that squeegee on that yellow is wrong, or we need we've got that, yellow can be very tacky ink. We've got that in the wrong place. We need to switch those out, and she can just do that by looking at it. So she's really learned the hard way on that, but I haven't printed since then. And I had to do something. We had a problem with DTF. The color, as I mentioned, was wrong. And I said, I'll run some plastisol transfers on the manual. And I got it all set up and everything. And I was like, how do you do this again? Which way
it's
up
not how, it's why. Why do we do this again?
That's right. But yeah, so how do you get from being that person that's doing everything to getting away from that and actually, doing the bits you want to do or the other bits that are necessary for building it? And I think that's the hardest part, is working that out.
Yeah.
Delegation is a skill.
But you got to have someone to delegate to, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But that, how do you get the right person? Are they going to stay? What's their ambition? Do they recognize this as a great career? Because I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
This is a really amazing career. It's phenomenal. I wish I'd done this 30 years ago, honestly.
It's a fine line between it being a career and a factory job.
Yeah.
There is a portion of what we do is screwing lids on toothpaste on a production line. So, and there are a large group of people who only want to come in at 8 o'clock, screw lids on toothpaste, and go home at 5 o'clock and not think about anything else. Yeah. And so for that, there is a factory job portion of what we do. But then on the flip side, there is this whole creative skill learning, career building side to it. And I think that sometimes gets skimmed over, and for the toothpaste part.
I can give you a really real recent example of that exact scenario. Throughout my print career, I've always had factory screw lid putter on us. And I did a job interview yesterday, and this person looks like a bit of a star. And, it looks like she can add quite a lot to the business. She can be somebody who looks at this as a career. And thinking long term, I need to get off that press and be glued to this laptop, driving the business forward. And if I'm not here, the current situation is if I'm not in this shop right now, the door's locked and we're not making money. So I need to start passing on my skills and knowledge to somebody else who can run the press, but ultimately manage other people who will be running the press on her behalf, type of thing. The thing that hit me yesterday, that sort of, prior to the show, me and Tony were having a little chat, and I said, I've had a couple of setbacks this week. I feel a bit down about it. And the thing that hit me was, she sent an email saying, I want quite a large amount of money. And it's gone from, people who are just bothered about turning up and doing what they do and then going home, no fuss whatsoever. But this person who has got a little bit more about them, and I'm like, I don't think I expected that email. I thought it would just going to be, so it's a dilemma. Staffing is something that's not an easy task.
It's the worst thing every time, no matter what business.
The squishy things are the hardest part of this business. The squishy things are harder to manage than any sticky plastisol, than any drying in white ink, or any hard to develop stencil. The squishy things, the soft things that we surround ourselves with every day, it's a real skill to manage those. And I'm not the best at it. I used to be until they changed the laws and you're not allowed to shout and swear at them now.
You should come to Australia.
You're allowed to.
No. But yeah, it's the people, and getting someone that wants a long-term job, or like you said, Tony, is happy putting the widgets in the box rather than having something that's too kind of cerebral, but also maybe likes art and likes working as a team and likes hard grafting. And it's actually a great job for a team, screen printing. And but it's so hard to find those people. And also, we got a university here and we could get students tomorrow, but they won't be here the day after,
No,
and
yeah.
even if they are, they won't be here the next year when they graduate and so on. And we really want to build a team, and we're very lucky. Until we started our physical move, one of our team decided she didn't want the stress of it and resigned, which kind of caught us all out a little bit. And it was sad because the whole team, we worked so well as a team. They were all quite sad about it and quite upset, but that's okay. Yeah. We've had 3 new starts since then, but we've got a good core. Like, we're at that stage, I think, where we can say, we need to go and do that real quick. Could you do that? Whatever it is. Can you run some film for that? Can you quickly expose that one? Can you get that dry? Can you quickly clean that? Anyone can go and do those jobs now. And apart from 2 of the new starts, I should say. Yeah. That's quite comforting. Yeah. Because it doesn't, like back in the day before we had a coder, a screen coder, there's usually only 1 or 2 people that know how to code a screen well. And that was me. And I didn't do it that well. And
that's why it's almost my first purchase in the screen room, because it gets rid of that. Well, we can't cut screens today. Why? Because Johnny went out last night and he's still pissed.
That's right.
There's nothing we can do. Well, can anybody else cut screens? I've never done it. He's never shown me how to do it. It's just this dark art that he does. He never spread the skill. We don't know how he does it.
That is exactly my biggest failure. I've failed every time I've had help to pass on skills other than I've employed this person to wash screens and that's what they've done. But they've not been able to coat screens. They've not been able to even stack shirts or mix ink. And that's a big failure on my part. And that's the skill in employing people. You have got to. But I love the way you've got a team that can do all aspects of the job. So
you have to cross-train. You have to cross-train everybody. Because employing people is horrible. You sort of think that they're your friends, and they're not. It's a contract. If you give me 8 hours of time, I'll give you this lump of money. And yes, you can build friends within it. But at the end of the day, it's a straightforward contract. And if somebody comes along with more money, then they're going to go that way. And if circumstances dictate they can't give you the 8 hours of time, then they're going to go do something else. And the key to that is understanding that those people will rotate around you, and you've just got to keep building a core. I love a core of 2 or 3 that are going to stay with you. But eventually, everybody will just rotate, and you'll see people come and go, and it's hard to accept because it's like losing a friend sometimes. But it's something you've got to do.
And I've, had the experience of having that through every job I've ever worked in, and it is hard, but it becomes a business decision either for them or for you in the end, and you just have to do it. But I think the hardest thing about all that is just trying to develop some kind of loyalty. We offer bonuses twice a year. At the end of the financial year in Australia is 30th of June, so we offer one then, and the other one we offer is at Christmas time. And they can be quite rewarding, they can be quite good sums. And obviously it depends whether we're cashed up at the time, but people know that, they understand that, and they're not just working for today's wage, they're working for the bonus that's coming that, could be 2 or 3 grand in some cases if things are going well. And I think that helps a little bit. Of course, some people might wait till they get the bonus and then resign the next day. Yeah. But the question there for me, right, is how do you change that, Danny? Because I'm guessing here that one of the problems is that you can't train or pass on those skills to the new person that comes in because you're all going flat out.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly right. I'm so busy that you almost just it ends up on the back burner. And the help I've had in the past, like I say, they've had the core job, which I've found the time to teach, but it never comes around that. I mean, sometimes, in some cases, it has been a lack of wanting to work from the employer, wanting to, they wanted to be a factory worker, screwing lids on toothpaste. They want to do what they want to come in at 9, go home at 5, and all they've done is exactly what they're employed to do. But I guess, one of the big things I'm going to change, I think, is the next person I'm going to get Tony here for a couple of days. to do a crash course.
What a
Straight
great
off the
idea.
bat. Just give me an head start on teaching. First couple of days, Tony and the new employee can go through all the fundamentals, and then I'll pick up, and through the everyday running of the business, obviously they'll learn over a 3 or 4 month period.
It's by exposure, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one other thing that I think that's brilliant. But another thing I think we fall victim of is when you think about it, I haven't analysed this, but let's say there are 10 parts to the whole process with 10 stations of different kinds of work, from, closing the sale, getting the money, ordering the stock, doing the artwork, creating the film, exposing the screen, yada, 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 all the way around the loop. You're doing all of those. When you hire someone, what usually happens is you say, I'm going to train you how to clean screens. And it doesn't relieve you of any of the other things, right?
No.
And I guess wherever you put them, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But my answer to that is train them how to work on the press, because cleaning screens is piss easy for someone like us, right?
Yeah.
None of us want to do it, don't get me wrong. Although it can be quite good therapy if you put your headphones in.
I'm all right with that. The therapy of it, yeah.
Train someone on the press. Train someone to print. I'm not saying they're going to pick up understanding squeegee pressures and angles and inks and all the rest of it. That does take a long time. But to at least learn how to load a press or unload a press, that side of it will take your mind out, because that's always the bit. Like if you've got everything in place, all you got to do is run the press.
Yeah.
But if you're the one running the press, you can't run the business or a little bit of the business to get that next bit started. So I think we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes by just saying, I need someone just to clean screens. That's all you need. And they get peeved off pretty quick, right? Here I am, there's another screen.
So the issue is we believe we are the only person that can do that. And
I
know Danny's guilty of that as well. It's like, well, I'll never find somebody who can do it as good as I can. What I say to that is, yeah, you're right. So get somebody to 90% and monitor them and do, use your skills to maintain what you call your standards. But the physical arms and legs bit, you can get somebody to do that, no problem.
So
I think
that's an idea.
Yeah, well, I think the scenario, the setup I'm going to go for is to have somebody who will learn all aspects of the business, but they will eventually operate the press for me. And I'll be the one setting it up, running a strike off. Yeah, let's go.
Yep.
Crack on.
Yep.
Top up the ink. Keep an eye. If there's any problems, press that big red button to stop it and give me a shout.
Yep.
Then I can come back upstairs. I can spend my time on my laptop, and I can build and run a business, which I've been lacking for so many years. Because, as you say, I'm working for a business. I'm printing t-shirts. I'm a press operator at the end of the day. And how do you build a business operating a press?
I don't think you are a press operator. I think you're a businessman who has to operate a press.
Yeah,
I agree. Absolutely. And I think, going back to your example of how to grow that, you set the press up, press off, you do the strike off, you get it warmed, press the button, mate, get on with it. But eventually that person will learn how to do that. Yeah, they'll watch you. You say, this is how you register. This is how we change this. Check the off contact over here and whatever. They'll eventually pick that up. And so what happens is you'll get an easier job, and you say, oh, you can set that up. You've seen me do that. Yeah. You know how to do it. And then it's a 2-color, and then it's a 4-color or whatever. And, you start to kind of, so that you can come away from that completely. And then you get them the helper, right? You get their sidekick going. They're unloading, they're packing, they're catching, they're folding, they're, all of that stuff, they're mixing Pantones, whatever it is. And then you're really free from that.
Yeah.
Right? Suddenly you're ordering stock, doing the marketing, doing the invoicing, maybe still doing the artwork.
Yeah.
And then you'll probably hire someone to clean screens. I clean screens. I get out there and clean screens. We had these 3 new people. One of them is a professional screen printer, which is a subject I'd like to raise with you, whether that's wise or not. But I'll come on to that. But I was training the new guys, the other 2, and I said, this is how we reclaim screens. And I went through it. I was like, this is great. I love this. after about 10 screens. And then I was like, okay, you got the hang of it now. So,
Yeah.
you do all have to kind of muck in and do stuff. But it is nice being away from it at that level. And sometimes
My
you do.
example is like people like Alex, Danny, and I can repeat this story at least 4 or 5 times across the US. Somebody will ring me up, Tony, can you come in and teach how to print? I'm like, no, you guys are better printers than I could ever be. I've seen the work you do. I've watched you work. You are a supreme printer. Why the hell would you pay me to come in and teach you how to print? I've got some new guys in. So teach the new guys. No, you don't understand. We know how to print, but we can't transfer that knowledge. What we struggle with is taking the knowledge that's in our head that we do, like you said, Lydia does all the time. Just put a little bit more pressure on that. Just tweak that yellow a little bit. Just change that off contact. These things happen all the time in our heads, and we do it normally without even vocalizing anything.
Yeah.
So then when we're asked to vocalize it to someone who doesn't understand what off contact is, that's the bit we struggle with.
Yeah.
So it is normal to have the knowledge, but not have the skill of passing on that knowledge.
And I think that will come, right? Like as you build it, but you've got to, like, it's all about risk business, whether it's the money end or it's the business, the working end or the market or whatever. And I think if you can take those risks to just pull yourself out a little bit to start thinking about all this other stuff that needs to be grown and done, I think it will make a difference. But yeah, I think choosing the right person and not just someone to clean screens, getting them into another part of the business.
I think that's the shift in attitude, shift in direction that I've eventually come to terms with, and that is where I'm going now. It is about getting somebody who's going to run. I'm just going to try and get copy and paste, or at least like Tony says, 80-90% of what I do.
Yeah.
I think the only issue is when that very that person with a bit of potential sent me an email asking for quite a bit more money than I actually had in my mind. That's where I'm like, I didn't expect that coming. But me and Haley are going to have a chat tonight. We're going to talk it over. And like you say, you've got to take the risk sometime, haven't you?
Straightforward logical calculation. It's a straightforward business calculation. Take emotion completely out of it and go, right, if I spend this much on my machine has 2 arms and 2 legs, will that machine contribute enough money for me to still take out what I need and continue to grow the business? You're basically buying another press. It's just that it's wrapped up in a human body. But it is really a press, and that's all you've got to think about. You've got to take the emotion out of it completely.
Yeah. You could create a sliding scale with them, right? You could say, aspirationally, we want to do that, but I want you in for 3 months at this rate. If you get through the gate correctly at that level, we'll get you up to this rate. By the end of the year, I'll bonus you the difference.
Yeah.
And then we'll put you on that rate. Because then you're slipping skin. You're not saying to them, nah, sorry, get stuffed, or, yeah, okay, and thinking, man, that's an extra $10 or whatever it is an hour. You're saying, yeah, we want to do that. But right now, it's me and a bunch of T-shirts I need to print. So let's get you in here and let's scale up to it. That might be another way. I'd recommend, if you're allowed to do that. I don't know if you're allowed to.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
We're totally fine doing it. I think that's the way to go, honestly. Like I say, I think me and Haley will have this conversation tonight, and we'll basically send a counter offer. Look, I understand you need to be at this point. There's a trial period, a training period, if you like. Let's get to this point. If all's going good, we'll put you on this, and then, like you say, maybe by end of the year we can. But I think, that's the way to go. But
one of the key things to know, Danny, is when to say no, when to call it a day, when to quit, when to say this is not for you, this is not for me. Next.
I've struggled with that in the past. I've had people working for me far too long who shouldn't have been here because I didn't want to hurt their feelings and put them out of a job. To a point, and this is, I'm far past this point now. I've learned a lot and learned from my mistakes. But going back a good, probably even 10 years ago now, I had 3 or 4 people working for me at the time. I grew at a rate, far quicker than I could handle. And certain things fell through. Money started nosediving, and to my own detriment, I kept those staff in place and paid them every single month, to a point that I know I almost went bankrupt because I did not want to put these people out of a job, and I drove myself mad with it for a little while. It's an hard thing to do, to let somebody go, and it's something I do struggle with. But I couldn't go back to that place ever again. I could never be in that situation ever again. So having a difficult conversation, like I will do that now, because it's better than going back to 10 years ago when I nearly lost everything. So,
and I feel like if you're transparent along the way, right? Like you can have casual contracts on 0 hours in Britain, can't you?
we can, yeah.
Yeah, right. So you're not promising any hours, and you can regulate those. Sorry, this week we're a bit quieter or whatever. And then you can just roll them out. You can give them a bit of notice. Look, in 3 weeks, I can see things are quietening down. You probably have no work here. Let me know if you're getting a job somewhere else. But it is a business decision, and it is hard because, sometimes people have got mortgages or sick kids or whatever it is, and you do feel kind of passionate about those sort of things naturally. So it is hard, but it has to be done sometimes.
Yeah, I think the actual the money that the person's asking for, it's okay if at the end of those 3 months it's coming back to me. If they're doing what they're promising they're going to do, and they're doing the job and they're learning, they're enthusiastic, they're getting stuck in, that money will come back to me. So it wouldn't be an issue. So I guess just put them on a trial period, see how it goes, and
and as I say that, I really hope that all my colleagues are listening to that podcast. Pay attention, everybody. They're all going to be so excited about this because they've known that I'm Auntie Moiré, right?
Oh, right. Okay.
So this morning I said to them, we have a team huddle at the beginning of every day and talk about what we're doing, and people bring show and tells now and again and stuff like that. I said to them, tonight's the night. Auntie Moiré is going to be revealed, so they're all super excited. But anyway, that's irrelevant. But I feel like growth is really hard, and the weird thing about this industry is if your business grows, it grows exponentially because you retain a certain number of customers.
Yeah.
So if you're jumping from, I don't know, 50 grand to 100 grand, that's easy. If you're jumping from 100 grand to 200 grand, that's great. But then if you get to 500,000 and then 1 million, you can't do that on your own, so learning how to build that at the same time is really difficult. And I feel like we were lucky with it, to be honest, in that I actually could not keep printing physically.
Yeah,
you can put me on the press to unload, but I wouldn't be able to do that for more than an hour. I'm just not fit enough at my age and stage. And, so it was necessary, but it is difficult. I know all businesses struggle with coping with growth. And if you continue to grow, I'm always saying this, but if you continue to double, you will go out of business. Because you cannot tool up quick enough for that. The moment you say to yourself, I need a second auto, you need a lot more screens, right? You're always talking about this, Tony. You need a lot more people to run those. You need more people to clean them. It's suddenly, boom, it's, the return of investment in terms of performance and efficiency, even though we're a very efficient industry, once you get a T-shirt on the press, it doesn't continue with a linear graph. It's actually very staggered as you grow. And that's painful, right? My wife's always saying to me, we moved to this place that's 5 times the size of where we were. And I said to her, it's going to be great, We're going to swing cats around. It's going to be marvelous. And
she came in already.
She stays away from all of my businesses. She hates the whole, not a business. But she came in to drop something off. She hadn't been in up until that point, right? And we've built the whole thing out. We've structured it really. We've been very lucky with it. And she looked around. We had a couple of pallets just being delivered for hoodies and all the other jobs going on. And she went, there's not enough room. You told me you're getting a new press. Where are you putting that? I'm just going over there. There's not enough room in there. And so, anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about that, but I think, that was the thing about growth. She said to me, "Are you going to stop at this level?"
When is it enough? It's never enough.
Never enough.
It's an
right?
addiction. It's never enough. You're never big enough. You're never successful enough.
That's the classic J.D. Rockefeller quote. How much is enough? He was a billionaire, right? How much is enough? Just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But how do you turn the taps off anyway? Do you know what I mean? Like, we do a fair amount of advertising. Will it, if I stop, will it stop, or will it continue to? I've got no idea. But we've got to keep it coming in for now. And I feel like that's hard.
Take that risk. You don't want to take that risk. What if it never comes back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who goes to some little spotty boy in the back room with a DTF printer and a heat press? Right.
That's
or a fork on a Chinese press and an iron. Yeah, you never know, do you?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, man.
So,
the good old days.
Can I ask you a question, Sam? Can we do a two-parter? Because I'm really enjoying this conversation. We've touched a little bit on your background. We've talked a bit of business, but I've got a list of topics here we've not got anywhere close to. So we've done an hour 15. I'd love to wrap it up now and then come back next week if it's good with you and do a part 2. Does that tickle you?
100%, boys. Yeah. I got loads of questions for you.
Yeah.
So we can maybe do those next time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are you
happy with that, Tony? Because I've got a list of stuff we're not even close to touching on yet.
I think I'm in Germany next week, I think.
That might be
What's that, an hour time difference to UK? Or more than that?
It's an hour before, so it's an hour closer to you.
Yeah, right.
That might work out
in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah. We'll have to get Danny in the shop at 8 o'clock. That's what we have to do.
I'm all right with that. I've got builders in, so I'm getting out of the house at 6:30 just so I don't have to interact with them. So I'm happy for an early episode. It's all good.
Before we do finish, I've got one thing I do want to say. At the risk of sounding kind of sycophantic, and don't misunderstand me.
No, go for it. We like sycophantic. It's fine. I'm okay with it. I've got used to it. Yeah.
I love your podcast, and Danny, I think we've known each other a few years now.
We have, yeah.
And we've had plenty of good banter on other subjects too. But I wanted to thank you for the podcast. It's not just another screen print podcast. There's plenty of them out there, and they have their different flavors and so on. And I love all the banter and the chit chat that goes on. But I think out of all the podcasts, the combination of you two brings something quite remarkable, because you've got an old master, if I can put it, this is the sycophantic part, right?
It's been called that, but usually there's a word at the aftermaster. It's normally, yeah.
An old master who's been in the industry a long time and is now working at a consultative level and seeing all these other shops that are going on and seeing the development of this industry as well, and a young entrepreneur who's struggling with that question of how do I get more time as a businessman and less time on the press, but also get the right quality of T-shirts and right quality of prints and so on. And the combination of those two produces something quite unique out there at the moment. And out of all of the podcasts, yours is technical. You're prepared to go in and talk about squeegee angles or talk about what moiraying is and really get into the mesh, if I can be really corny, get into the mesh and understand all of these things and express them to people like me and others that really love this stuff, but also want to understand, why does that white work well on that? Why does an Aquaflex look better as an underbase with a plaster? All of that stuff. So I want to thank you for that personally. I love listening to it. I listen to them every time they come out, and I learn so much from them. And not to badmouth any of the other podcasts, I listen to a lot of others as well, but they're just very different. And so you found a great niche. You complement one another, and I'm just glad you do what you do. So thanks for that.
We really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time. Danny has a hard time with it, but I explained to him that I travel around the world. You're like 12,000 kilometers away from us. I was 9,000 miles away in Brazil, and people talk to me about the podcast. You know, I can be in northern Canada, I can be in West Africa, and people talk to me about the podcast. So, you know, it is hard hitting. I've got a guy in America right now who's just buying his first press, and he taught himself to print from our podcast. I mean, he prints
Fantastic.
badly, but
Oh, sure, that's not good.
no. So yeah, it's nice to get that appreciation. It's nice to know because it's. I mean, I understand it because I see it, but Danny doesn't quite understand that. You know, we are far-reaching, and this is all from a drunken night in Dublin at some point where you said, "Shall we do a podcast?" And I said, "What's a podcast?"
Well,
Yeah, God. Oh, really touching that, Sam. Thank you very much. It really does,
cheers. Appreciate it.
mean a lot of that. And a little bit of motivation to keep going, I think. So that was
absolutely. You keep at
Sam,
it.
I've had a chuffing great time chatting with you. And
Me
I
too.
don't want to stop, but I'm looking at 200 hoodies that need folding and bagging. So
You see, if you had somebody that could do that for you.
I know. I think that just proves a point, doesn't it? I should be here chatting with Sam, talking business, but I've got to go bag some hoodies. So that proves that point pretty well. Let's do a part 2, mate. Let's see if we can make it work next week because there's so much more we can chat about, and I think people enjoy it as well.
Yeah,
sure,
as much as I
absolutely.
do.
All right. So there's only one thing remains, right?
You've got to do it. I've just been practicing.
We didn't
So
even
all that remains to be said is
I'll see the.
I'll see the.
All right.
I'll spot on there. I'll see you all later.
I don't want lobster thermidor with raspberry Kool-Aid. It's Friday night, I'm within me rights. I want a Chippy Tee.